Fisher-Price is family. It's tradition.
To me, Fisher-Price means quality, good toys.
Those toys, they don't break.
They're timeless.
They're the fun.
Is fun.
Fisher-Price to me is family.
My daddy works at Fisher-Price.
There are things that I had when I was a kid that my parents still have and my kids are still playing with.
All those great toys.
Fisher-Price make me smile.
Fisher-Price toys are classics.
Brings back a lot of fun memories, for sure.
On October 1st, 1930, Herman Fisher, Irving Price, Helen Shelley, and a small group of employees began making the first Fisher-Price toys. Herman Fisher had been president of All Fair Toys and wanted to lead a company of his own. He found both encouragement and financing through Irving Price, a retiree from the F.W. Woolworth Company. They soon recruited Helen Shelley, who was a successful toy store owner from Binghamton, New York. Together, the three created a toy company that would excite the imaginations of children for generations and surpass even their own wildest dreams.
When Herm Fisher started Fisher-Price, there were only 15 employees, and those 15 employees helped turn out what he considered the 16 hopefuls at Toy Fair in 1931.
And the line was led by Dr. Doodle. He's considered the icon of our first toy line.
I don't know that I've ever actually held in my hands
an original.
Dr. Doodle is a classic in the industry.
This is Fisher-Price.
Yeah, this is what Fisher-Price is all about.
Holy Grail. It makes you tingle to touch this.
It covers.
It is really the beginning, the heart and soul of what Fisher-Price has become. It showed action.
You had to have action. Action is everything in a toy to keep a child's interest and attention.
But it was the first real, exciting, fun, motion, high-quality toy that Fisher-Price is known for today.
But to actually be touching the real thing, gee.
Herm used Disney characters in his toys all the time.
These Disney toys were really fantastic products.
And the most favorite ones were, Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse.
Donald Duck, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That was a huge toy.
Also Pluto, he was wildly popular.
That helped turn the first profit of the company.
A little-known fact is that actually Donald Duck was a better seller than Mickey Mouse in those early years.
I would have to say my favorite old toy is the Snoopy Sniffer.
The Snoopy Sniffer was a nice, big basset hound, black and white.
The first job that I had on the assembly line was putting the litho on the outer edge of the Snoopy Sniffer.
Snoopy took the market by storm in 1938.
I remember it because, as a merchant, it sold well. But on top of that, it had great play value.
And I loved Snoopy Sniffer. I loved how his feet would move.
I was always amazed by that spring tail.
It's just so representative of Fisher-Price.
During the war years, Herm Fisher made one of the most strategic and probably most difficult decisions any chief executive has to do, and that is doing what's right for your community, for the country, over what's right for the business.
He said, if the war requires our entire plant, we will help the war.
They completely stopped making toys for that period of time.
We made crates for the Red Cross.
And they also did ship vendors.
It was a very difficult decision, but very important for both Herman and for the company and for the country.
Well, in 1946, Fisher-Price began production again.
And I think we only had probably 35 or 40 employees at that time, but we did have a 3-shift operation.
Both my parents came to work after the war years, and that's when the toy business was really starting to boom.
In the old days when they started to make the toys, and you would come into the woodworking department and smell the pine.
We had all this great ponderosa pine, remember that?
Yes.
They get no knots in it, it was beautiful, it was like gold.
Their first toys were made out of what they call ponderosa pine. It was a wood that had a warm feel to it.
In 1950, Fisher-Price became a trendsetter with the introduction of plastic to the toy industry in Queen Buzzy Bee's wings.
That was a translucent or transparent wing that was added to a wooden toy, and it just had that different look.
Being the first product that started to use that newfangled plastics is pretty impressive because this was the start of something even bigger.
With Herm, he'd say, look, I know I always said wood, but in this case now we can't do with the wood that we can with plastic.
Plastics and toys revolutionized what we could do in manufacture and design and product. We gave it form, we gave it lightness, we gave it more color.
We had probably the finest plastic available.
We talked to moms. They thought that Fisher-Price had a specific kind of Fisher-Price plastic.
In 1957, Fisher-Price introduced 3 industry classics: the xylophone, the corn popper, and snap-lock beads.
This toy actually was popular when I was young. I just remember the colorful metal keys.
And then I remember the corn popper. What a great thing is sound and action.
And the action is in front
It's
of
in
the
front,
child.
right. It's down in front of you here, so when you're pushing it along, you know, it's not something you can see. And it pops up, there's action, there's sound.
It's a snap-lock bead. It's a very original one.
This is how we used to play with it.
I think it's very basic and fun shape, and you can make as long as you want to.
And just play with the different colored beads. Oh no.
Multi-purpose, you can do it.
Fisher-Price was growing so fast.
We didn't have the warehouse space that we needed, so we had to go to the local dairy farmers.
And one of the barns caught on fire. It was down back of where McDonald's would be now. And, half burned down, but the other half collapsed, and it dumped corn poppers all over the village. Every kid in town got a free corn popper within a week, because they were just all over the place.
This is the Looky fire truck, and it's special because these cute little characters, the little round-headed guys, were actually the start of our Little People line.
Some very smart designers said, hey, why don't we take those little firemen off the toy, make them separate, and let kids play with them.
It started out just on a couple of products, and it went over very well. So then the designers started designing a lot more toys with the little people.
So we put them in a school bus format, which was the most popular vehicle for kids.
And when you pulled it along, the figures would bounce up and down, but what we loved, there was a little grumpy boy in there, and it had a baseball hat on backwards.
And this particular one that I'm holding right now is with a wooden body, and of course that's what we started with originally.
They were all assembled by hand. Became a revolving table, and one woman would put in the body, the next one might put on the collar, the next one would put on the head. Those women could put toys together better than anything I've ever seen.
Wait, that's a grumpy boy with a baseball hat.
Little People is magical, I think, is because I think the child projects themselves in the little person that they have in front of them.
I like this guy. Well, this is the one. This one has here. I like the ball guy, though. I don't know why. He appeals to me.
My favorite toy would probably be the Rock-A-Stack, because I think the Rock-A-Stack is an item that is everybody familiar, associates with Fisher-Price.
I'd love to meet the inventor of the Rock-A-Stack. Millions of children have played with it throughout the years.
Brightly colored rings of soft, safe plastic that teach size and order. It has movement.
And we've made over 52 million Rock-A-Stacks.
If you stack them all on top of each other, you would be able to reach all the way from LA to Paris.
Just really a genius toy.
Oh, the chatter telephone is one of my favorites.
And, it's a really neat product. The cord, as you can see, is expandable, but was used as the pull for the toy as well.
You know what I really loved was his little eyes. I loved how they blinked up and down.
And it brought this personification to what normally would have been a more serious object.
I loved to turn it and hear the noise. And even today, even though phones don't have a rotary dial, that's one of the main features.
At one point, we actually updated the chatter phone and put push buttons on it. And parents and children rejected it. And we actually had to go back and put the rotary dial on.
The founders of Fisher-Price always believed in testing toys with children. And they used to do it with employees' children and with neighborhood children.
The Fishers were neighbors of us. And we used to go down, my sister and I would go down there and play honestly didn't realize we were testing toys.
And he said, we need to formalize that and really, really know what it takes to make the right toy.
So when the first R&D building was built, Herm Fisher made sure that there was a space for a nursery school.
My first priority was to have it a good place for children.
And in that nursery school, there was a one-way mirror so that the children could be observed playing with the toys.
That was unique in the industry.
To watch children play, I think sometimes gives you ideas about what they do and like and what they're thinking.
Today, we see about 3,500 children a year.
It's been proven that good ideas come from knowing your client, and your client is your kids.
In 1968, Fisher-Price introduced the Play Family Farm.
The Little People Farm relates to something that this area is very familiar with, farms. Not now, but in that day and age.
We had some little animals and, of course, a little moo sound when the door of the barn opened.
And it was just not a moo, it was a moo.
You opened the thing, it was a big bell. It was a bellows. It wasn't an electronic. Moo.
The door to the barn that had a moo sound when they opened it. And of course, anybody loves a sound.
To do that mechanically was outstanding.
Yeah. In 1968, he sold the company to a company from Chicago called Quaker Oats.
But I called it a marriage, and it was a good one.
The price was $50 million.
And he could have got a lot more money for the company, but he chose not to. He looked until he found a company that closely matched and had some of the values that he had, and Fisher-Price held high. What they did was just infuse a massive amount of money, massive amount of capital into a tremendous brand.
And in doing so, really vaulted it from a small family-owned company into the giant in the toy industry that it is today.
We were a $25 million company when they bought us in 1969, and in less than 10 years, we became a $250 million company. In 1969, Herm Fisher retired after 38 years as president of the company.
Everyone called him Herm.
Herman, yes. He was a great guy.
Personally, I consider Mr. Fisher probably the only genius I've ever met.
Herm was a guy who was a real people person.
Once a week, he would walk through the entire plant, up and down all the assembly lines.
He would periodically stop by and ask people what they thought of the company and how things were going.
I think Fisher's personality and his caring about everything came out in the toys.
I think everybody in the company loved the man.
After Quaker Oats purchased us, they had the capital, of course, to create Fisher-Price TV advertising.
Just look at that detail. Now, why can't you guys do work like this? These Fisher-Price toys are marvelous.
We always saw all the commercials, and everybody was excited about them. I mean, and I mean everybody. I'm talking about everybody on the line and throughout the plant, and we're proud of the fact that this is our company.
There are at least two things you can count on. Children are still children, and Fisher-Price is still Fisher-Price.
This was pretty breakthrough. This category did not exist.
In 1973, instead of just selling to 2 to 5-year-olds, we sold to babies. And we made toys that were birthed to 2.
But the ability to kind of step back and understand, what does an infant do? How do they react to things?
We took the Rock-A-Stack, and Snap-Lock beads was another, and began to create a whole new range of product.
By introducing Crib and Playpen, now we were with moms from day one. From the birth of her child, we call it our first hug.
Because of that, as the child grew up, Mom wanted to continue to buy Fisher-Price because these products were so good for the child.
My first recollection of Fisher-Price is when I got the Little People Castle.
The Little People were very much a part of each day.
I loved it because every little girl wants to be a princess.
It was just wonderful because that wasn't based in the real world, but it allowed it a preschooler to kind of imagine a little bit.
I think it was her, and she had a little crown on.
It had all the fun part, it had little chutes to slide down. There was something very special about that.
My favorite place set was the garage.
And I remember specifically, it was the elevator, and you would crank it, crank it, crank it.
Who doesn't love cranking the elevator up and getting a ding?
And then it would ding, and then it would go down the ramp.
But it was the elevator. Who could not forget the elevator?
Good choice.
The 80s was beginning to be a little bit more of new tech type toys.
In 1980, the number one toy in the industry, the Fisher-Price tape recorder.
It was fun, and I used to sing right into here. It was great, and then pop it right in.
So that began the 80s as the age of electronics. Fisher-Price introduced juvenile products.
Those products were very different from what I'd worked on. We didn't call them toys either.
We would consider them non-toys, or the non-toy area.
And we introduced a high chair and a changing table and several other products that created a whole new industry.
Fisher-Price became much more than just toys.
And we had to change our name from Fisher-Price Toys to Fisher-Price. The Fisher-Price Play family toys were called that all the way through the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, but when we did market research, we found out that all the consumers were calling them little people.
We're little people with great big plans.
We said, hey, that's a great idea. Let's call them little people. We patented that phrase in 1985, the world of little people.
Everybody has little people. Of course they had little people.
Oh yeah, we had lots of little people.
And I can remember sitting on the floor and playing with my son for hours.
It was like you didn't have fingernails, but you had little people.
There you go. Hello, hello.
It got to the point where we're making hundreds of thousands of these little people.
We had one machine that used to make like 25,000 little people during an 8-hour shift, and that thing ran 24 hours a day.
In 1997, we really changed them. They actually then had their own faces and hands.
So the addition of the hands actually was very much